Hey there, everybody. This is John Sherwood, part of johnsherwood.com and the community where we seek to fuel faith in Jesus in the 21st century. Today, we're actually going to be on an interview call with Guy Hammond, who helps to lead a ministry called Strength and Weakness. This Strength and Weakness ministry has specialized and focused in helping to bridge the gap between the LGBTQ community and the Christian community, where there have historically been so many walls and barriers and tensions. And Guy, we're just so grateful to have you on here with us today.
Yeah, thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Guy, I know that I was able to get really involved with your ministry about 6, 7 years ago and get to know you and your family. And it's been an incredible joy just to get to know you and your story a little bit more. If you wouldn't mind, why don't you tell our audience a little bit just about your story and about how you came to know Jesus and how you came to lead this Strength and Weakness ministry? How did all that come about?
Yeah, I lived an active gay life until I was 24 years old. During that period of time, I had a boyfriend for 10 years, and there was even a period of years there where I was involved in the gay community in downtown Toronto. I grew up going to church, but in my late teens really gave up on that, really not thinking that church was a safe place for somebody like me. After several years, though, of just kind of doing my own thing and being a part of the gay community in downtown Toronto, I really, by that time, had acted out hundreds of times with different men. I really tried everything I knew to do in order to, make myself happy, take care of the emptiness I felt in my heart, and just really nothing was working. And by the time I was 24, I knew my life was in trouble. I didn't know where to go for help, but in God's perfect timing, He sent someone who invited me to church, where I was able to learn about what it really meant to be a Christian. And so I decided to become a Christian, and I left that life behind forever. That was in August of 1987, so 30 years ago. And I've not participated in any kind of homosexual activity since my conversion 30 years ago.
Wow.
Over the years, since becoming a Christian, what's that?
I was just saying that's awesome. Praise God.
Yeah, so over the years, God just really blessed my life. Ended up getting married to an amazing and beautiful woman, Kathy, and had 4 great kids, and ended up becoming a minister. And I was pastoring a church in Eastern Canada. But while doing that, just kind of came to the conclusion, John, that, most churches were not equipped in order to really be able to help people who came from homosexual background, who were trying to find Jesus. And a lot of Christians were not dealing with this topic in a very holistic, respectful, or spiritual manner. So I decided to start this ministry. It was about 12 years ago now. And the ministry's really grown over the years to where we're now helping thousands of people in 58 countries around the world. So that's what's going on. That's why I started it.
That's amazing. And so you can actually go, if you're interested, and learn a little bit more about this ministry at their website, strengthandweakness.org. And I know recently you have been obviously through a lot, even in your own personal and family life, as your wife of 27 years just recently passed after a bout with cancer. And I know that has really taken a huge, enormous toll on you, on your family, on your local church community, and your ministry as well. Maybe you can talk a little bit about just sort of what that journey has been like, and then also kind of what the future is looking like for your Strength and Weakness ministry.
Yeah, thanks. My wife, Kathy, as you said, we'd been married for 27 years. Kathy was absolutely my best friend, my soulmate, person in the world I felt safest with. And so it's a huge life-altering event to lose her, obviously. She was a healthy woman. She was 55 years old. She was very active. She did yoga and hiking and kayaking, and she ate well and really took good care of herself. So it was quite a shock when we found out she had brain cancer. She was diagnosed in August of 2017, and at that time it was stage 4 glioblastoma. So she was told she only had a year to live. And as it turned out, she lived a year and two weeks from the time of diagnosis. But she was a just incredibly faithful woman, a godly woman, and She did not fear death. She was not afraid of that. She really looked forward to going to heaven to be with God forever, and that gave her a lot of peace. And she was really determined to try to fit in as much life as possible in the year that she had remaining. So we did a lot of great things as a family, had a lot of fun. We got to say our goodbyes, and she was able to have some great talks with our kids, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I would say the last 4 or 5 months were pretty tough. We took care of her here at home for a period of months, doing the best we could. And then she eventually went into a hospice facility where, 24-hour care there. And she was there for a couple months, and then she passed. So yeah, I'll tell you, grief is a bear. It's really, taking it out of me. I mean, I knew I was going to be sad and lonely. I didn't know it was going to be like this. I have been just so sad. You've just happened to interview the saddest and loneliest man you've ever met. Like, I'm just really struggling through life. I'm exhausted all the time. I'm foggy mentally. I have a hard time making decisions. I am just even to do sometimes the simplest chores, seems overwhelming to me. Just to get out of bed and function some days is all I can do. And I've just really lost my zest or my enthusiasm for life. Like I feel like I've lived a great life. I've traveled. I've seen the world. I've raised a great family. My kids are all moving on now to live their own lives. Now that my wife is gone, I'm by myself. So it's kind of like, man, what is there left to do? What's God's plan for my life? I'm not really sure. So anyway, to get help, I've joined a grief support group, and that's been helpful, just to talk with people who are going through the same kind of thing, to get some perspective and direction. So I've been doing that for a couple months now, but I'm recognizing that this is going to be something that's going to take years to get over it, not months. Even with my strength and weakness ministry, I have a volunteer staff of 10 people who help me run the ministry. And even with them, I've had to say, guys, you're going to have to pick up the slack and really help me, because I'm not the man I used to be. And I just don't have the energy, the wherewithal, the mental sharpness that I used to have. And I don't know when it's all going to come back. So, I'm really relying on trusted friends and people in my ministry just to really help pull it all together, because I'm just not able to do what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing that. Obviously, I mean, it's a very difficult time, and one that I would imagine that many in our audience might be able to relate to in various capacities, and losing a loved one, to whatever degree it is, I know affects all of us deeply. And I'm just really grateful for your vulnerability and even your honesty about, hey, like, I don't know exactly how this is all gonna look and work, and where this is all going in terms of my life, my ministry, and I'm just in the depths of this grief. I'm literally walking in this shadow of death in this valley. And I just want to encourage you, bro, that God is obviously there walking with you, and the impact that you have had and continue to have is really profound, and I know that Kathy was very, very proud of you and of the work that you were doing, and proud to be a part of that with you, and to be able to travel the world with you, and be able to speak with you, and be able to really impact so many hearts, on both sides of the fence of faith. And I'm just really grateful that you'd be willing to even share right now with me in this platform. And so you mentioned that you have some volunteer staff around the country, around the world, really, that help with the strength and weakness ministry. Maybe you can share a little bit about them and what they do, and kind of the scope of your ministry, and what your ministry is really setting out to do, and what you're focused on, and who the people are that you're focused on trying to help.
Yeah, when I started the ministry 12 years ago, it was pretty simple. My initial goal was to try to find 30 people to help, 30 Christians who like me, come from homosexual background, but now as followers of Jesus, still have same-sex attractions. But the ministry really just very quickly grew. We found 30 in the first week, and within a couple months we were past 500, and just got bigger and bigger and bigger. But along with that growth came the realization that I needed to broaden my horizons in terms of the kinds of people that we would help. It went from just trying to help Christians who live with same-sex attractions to recognizing, wow, for instance, there's a lot of parents and family members out there who've got a gay loved one, somebody in their family that they care about, but are really unsure on how to really be able to help their loved one in that situation. And so we started a parents ministry where we now have parents from all over the world that we're helping, where we have online support groups, that kind of thing. Another area of ministry that became obvious, but I had not been expecting, and that was in a transgender ministry. But in today's world and culture, where that is just on the front lines of today's news, and something that's really being addressed in our educational system and the media, we started getting a lot of questions about all things transgender. And there was just a tremendous young man who I'd become friends with. His name's Brandon, who was actually transgender. When he was 18 years old, he had a complete sex change and lived his life as a woman until he was in his mid-20s. Then was invited out to church, and on his own came to the conviction and conclusion that his best way to honor and glorify God was to go back to God's initial intent for his life. So he went back to living as a man again. So he seemed to be an obvious place to go to for help and direction. And so Brandon now oversees my transgender ministry and does an amazing job helping people all around the world in that. Excuse me. We also have a ministry for women specifically, where we have women who are faithful and godly women. They're same-sex attracted, but they've really maneuvered their way through those rocky waters with a lot of faith and courage, and so they help women all around the world. I've got an AIDS ministry, HIV and AIDS ministry. Again, something I had initially considered, but there are certainly Christians who have HIV and AIDS, and they need help and encouragement. So I've got an amazing brother from New York City who is a faithful, godly man. He's same-sex attracted. He himself has AIDS, but he's also a professionally trained counselor at an AIDS clinic. And so he helps our ministry. So there's just a broad spectrum. It went from, hey, we're just trying to help Christians who live with same-sex attractions, to all these other things.
Right.
I'm not sure what we can add to our portfolio moving forward, but as the ministry grows, I mean, what we want to do is meet needs. We want people to know that just because you're same-sex attracted, just because you live with transgender issues or temptations, just because you have AIDS or HIV, whatever these things are, listen, we want people to know that these should not be game changers in your ability to be able to follow Jesus and live a faithful, godly life, a life that would really honor and glorify God. And so whatever area of brokenness is, we want people to know that you can absolutely live an amazing Christian life. And a lot of times people think, I can't live as a Christian with these temptations or different challenges in my life. We want you to know that's not true. So that's really what we're focusing on. Our ministry, John, isn't necessarily evangelistic in nature. We're not trying to get out and try to find all the gay people and bring them in. That said, we're certainly an educational tool where we teach and educate Christians on how to, in a real pragmatic way, know how to share their faith with their gay friends and neighbors in a way that doesn't offend people, but also continues to lift up the biblical truth of the biblical sexual ethics. So that's the other thing our ministry does. A lot of education, is we're trying to help Christians know how to be able to deal with this within their communities.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think a lot of times what we found, especially historically in the Western church, is that there's such animosity and such tension between those that are in the church and those that are in the gay community or the LGBTQ community. And one of the things that I know I have personally appreciated so much about what you guys are doing is that you're really helping to equip Christians on how to, as you just said, be able to interface with those that are in the LGBTQ community, whether it's someone out in the community or in the workplace or someone in your own family, in a way that is honest, in a way that's true to the biblical sexual ethic, but also in a way that's compassionate and respectful and far more effective. Because I think a lot of times what I found is that there's so many barriers up already, whether we were a part of putting them there or not. We've got to figure out how can we be a part of dismantling them. And I think that your ministry is so critical for that process of helping us as Christians learn how to do what Jesus came to do, which was to reconcile people to God and to one another. And I'm so grateful for how your ministry is a part of that. And I know that moving forward after this loss of your wife and this enormous, massive shift in your own personal life, as you look forward to the future of Strength and Weakness Ministry, and maybe someone out there is listening to this, someone a part of the johnsherwood.com audience or whatever, and they're wanting to know, how can I learn more? How can I get involved? How can I help support what you're doing? Where would you direct them? And what are maybe one or two things that you would think would come to the surface on how they can really help support this ministry?
Yeah, thank you. Certainly go to my website, strengthinweakness.org. There's a ton of information there that's all just free. It's just all available. So many questions. Some of the most common and most often asked questions are really just answered there. So a ton of material there. For people who are same-sex attracted and trying to live a Christian life, there's a small fee, $8 a month you can join. And if you do that, there's devotionals, quiet times, testimonials, support groups that you can join, a whole bunch of stuff that's available to you there as well. The other thing that would be worthy of me mentioning, John, is that a couple of years ago, a documentary filmmaker from Texas attended one of my workshops and afterwards came up and said, hey, amazing story. We'd love to be able to make a movie about your life and your ministry. Anyway, the movie has been 3 years in production. It's called Finding Guy. And so Finding Guy is just about completed. It's going to be released in the spring of 2019. And if people are interested in watching, you can actually see Finding Guy for free. Just go to my website, strengthandweakness.org. You'll see a very, very clearly there an advertisement for the movie Finding Guy. Just click that link. And if you just put in your email address, when the movie is released in the spring, you'll be able to get free access to be able to watch the movie Finding Guy. But the movie is really great because it's a tremendous educational tool. I was at a premiere of it in Texas a couple months ago, and there was actually a couple of people from the gay community who actually came to that and came up to me afterwards and was like, wow, amazing, amazing, man. They just loved it. Another man came up and said, I had so many questions about homosexuality and how it related to me in matters of faith. And he said, I just watched your movie. It answered all my questions. So, I think it's a tremendous educational tool for Christians to be able to watch. It will really, really help you, just even in your own evangelism, besides the fact that it's just a really well done movie.
Right. Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Guy, for sharing that. Again, thank you for taking the time to share with us here and to be able to talk a little bit about this ministry that I believe is so vital and critical. If you haven't already had a chance, please go and check out the ministry there at strengthandweakness.org. And please consider please helping Guy's ministry and all of those that he's impacting and affecting throughout the world. Guy, thank you so much. And thank you for helping to fuel faith in the 21st century.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate being a part of the group today.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.